couple of things. I think it's always obviously better to present the budget more clearly or in more accurate detail, if there's anything that's inaccurate or perceived as inaccurate now. I guess a couple of things, and I'll try not to get too far off the agenda item. If we are going to recategorize, and I have no problem with moving things around, but again, it needs to be equalized compared to other communities. If we put school retirement costs and call it part of the school budget, then we have to be sure, and that moves up what the perception of per pupil spending is. Are other communities doing the same thing, or have we moved ourselves up accurately or falsely compared to other communities? So I think that you always need to have a perspective of where others are, and I'm not saying that our perspective is right now, but we can't just move things around and say, okay, that's the answer compared to everyone else without knowing.
That's exactly my point as it relates to the next step. And again, we're off the agenda, but in the comparative analysis. The first next step is to determine where did the DOR numbers come from, where did they come from,
Right.
and then are they equal across all the communities? And because it doesn't solve the problem just to move retirements from the general government to the school budget, or move the school department health costs from general government to the school department.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. Well, first of all, it won't change one thing as it relates to the total budget. And second thing is, if they are reallocating within DOE to equalize across all communities, then that should be coming out in the formula. And if it's not, then they're not equalizing across the community. So the first leg of the journey to me is to understand how DOR and DOE come up with the numbers they come up with. Because if they've equalized across the communities, which I somewhat believe they do, then we have a basis for comparison. Absent that, we're nowhere.
Well, I don't disagree.
I know, so.
You told me everything I know. I don't disagree. However, if we find out, if we can't put the numbers, I personally don't want to stop the comparison process. And if the town administrator wants to, if you want to jump in here, feel free. It's my understanding of our next step. Part of what's going to help us with the numbers is we're going to look at the actual budgets and contact the towns and look at the actual budgets and understand where they put them. And if they don't put them where we put them or where DOR puts them, we can put, we'll go through and look at our 10 peer towns and say, okay, do they put, trash in their library budget? And I know that that's completely erroneous, but if that is the way every other town accounts for it, then when we're doing a peer analysis, we're going to either move trash in or we're going to move everybody else's trash out of their library budget so we can compare apples to apples. So I don't want to, if we can't put back to the DOR numbers, what it proves is that maybe us and everyone in the community shouldn't go around touting using the DOR numbers, but what it should mean is that we're going to be responsible and go one step further and look at these peer comparisons and equalize everything. And I think that the town administrator and I have had conversations, and I think we both understand the necessity for that and are willing to put in the detail work to get there.
As long as we can justify the numbers used for the comparison, that's fine.
But they may not be the DRR numbers. They
That's
ultimately be
understood.
Mr. Younger's own numbers that he comes in with and can show you that
If we want
10 other towns on the list, everyone's retirements have been placed here. Everyone's trash budget has been placed here. Everyone's recreation director, if they do indeed have one, is placed here. And then we can look at that. And while I also wouldn't disagree that we don't necessarily automatically move things around because of that, if we're falling way outside of a median or average when that all happens, then we have to make a judgment as a community
Yes.
That's where we want to be, and that we, we're putting a priority on whatever that is, and in some places, we're gonna be forced to do that, because, for example, until our Neswick contract expires. If none of these other communities are Neswick communities, our trash budget is going to be higher for the next couple of years than any other community, and there's nothing we're gonna do about it until that
That's right.
contract expires. So we need to understand those things, and then we decide if we need to make any judgment based on those. But I think we need to get an accurate set of numbers, and we'll see how,
Yeah, but again, we're,
I know, but everyone else did so.
no, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman,
Just to do.
if I can stay off for 1 second. I just want to address something that Mrs. Bailey just brought up. I think what's even more important than seeing what these other 10 communities allocate their funds is the most important thing we can do is to find out, with the funds we're allocating now, are we successful? Because if we are, who cares if we're spending less than another community? There's got to be an outcome base, that the outcome has to drive the allocation of funds. If things are working, just because it's lower doesn't make it wrong. And throwing more money at that situation at the cost of some other department, that doesn't do us any good. So, I mean, as Mr. Murphy said earlier, it's a tool for
Right,
comparison, but it shouldn't be the driving force of, well, let's look at what everybody else spends their money on, and let's redo our budget that way. If something is working, then it shouldn't matter to us what another community is spending in terms
But
of
we should
percentage.
proactively make that judgment and say, okay, we are not spending as, we're spending the highest or lowest in a certain category as the 10 other communities, but you know what? That proactively works for us, and that we proactively make that decision.
That gets into the priority.
Passively let it go by, and that's the priority, and that's the performance-based budget that, that Mr. Younger has talked about. Is it working for us? Is our crime rate good? Is our trash picked up on time? Or, are all those things happening? And if they are, then we agree that all our priorities are in the right place, and we're getting the best bang for our buck in the distribution of tax dollars, then I agree, but we're going through a very informative process that I think at the end we'll all know more, and hopefully be more comfortable. Even if we don't change anything, we'll be real comfortable the way we spend our dollars when we're done, more comfortable than we are now, because nobody looks very nobody looks nor sounds very, very comfortable to me at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, is that- Okay. Well,
We're gonna get done.
all the new business. The chair will go first. The MMA annual meeting is coming up on January 10th and 11th, so if anyone is wishing to attend, if you could let Tom know. Tom, I'll get back to you on that. I think I will be attending. Also, I serve on a municipal and regional administration policy committee for the MMA. And one of the subject matters is some of the changes that are, 2 issues on the next agenda, which I hope to be able to attend the meeting. There are some amendments to EMS and emergency medical services. Are you familiar with those? I should get you a copy. And then there's a zoning reform working group. And obviously, there's a lot of Chapter 40B discussion going on at the state level, so I'll try to attend that and get some copies of that info to the board. You should have all received in your packet some additional information regarding the appointments we'll be doing in December. These are the annual appointments. what I asked Mr. Younger to do was give us information on those seeking reappointment, so that we all start from the same level playing field. So, Tom, thank you, and thanks to Karen for putting that together. So you should have information not only on who's seeking appointment, but who's being reappointed, so that you can do an apples to apples comparison of experience, skills, etc. The budget, actually, let me jump down to the comparative analysis first. You all received a copy of a memo from Mrs. Bailey and myself, and both of us. And I would ask that you review that and call Mrs. Bailey or myself with questions, comments, concerns. We're moving forward with the next steps, and we need to keep that process going. So if you have questions, issues, or concerns with what's in there, and again, it outlines, and we've had a lot of discussion about it tonight, so I really don't want to, I won't cut anybody off, but I'd rather not open up the discussion. But right now, the next step is actually twofold. One, Mr. Young is getting some info from the 10 communities we've chosen to compare to and compare ourselves to, and then we're also going to try to discern what DOR is doing, where the numbers are coming from, what drives them to the equalizer. So you'll be hearing more about that, but again, the critical component right now is feedback from the board. So absent feedback, I presume concurrence with the process, at least for where we are now. So let me know, or let Mrs. Bailey know, please. That's important. I think I spoke with everyone. I think I even spoke with you, but I don't know about this. Shocking. I think I spoke with everyone on the board. One of the other things I mentioned to each of the board is for this next budget process that we will assign liaisons from the board to the individual departmental budgets. We haven't done that in the past. That will go beyond the liaison assignment list that we have, because that just encompasses appointed and elected boards and committees. So this will, some members did ask me, what's the expectation? Become as much of an expert in that budget as you can. I will, once I get the assignments final, then we'll send that out to the department heads or the departments, so that everyone's aware who their liaison is, so that they have, A, they have a voice on the Board of Selectmen, and B, they will, and I will instruct them in the memo to include the board member in their meetings or whatever, so that you get as much information as you can. I understand you're all busy, and you can't become an expert on each and every one of those budgets, but I think from a communications and dialogue perspective, I think it's important. This is likely to be a difficult budget process, so I think that will add a lot of value. I did also meet with all of the department heads that report in to Tom. So I met with Tom and all of his reports. I think there might have been a couple missing that were out of the building that day or whatever. Just to talk about the budget process and to talk about the comparative analysis and to let them know we were taking a fresh look at things. I think it was a great dialogue. It was good communication, and we may have one more of those before we're through with the budget cycle. But again, that was just an opportunity for me. I wanted to get feedback from them and see if they had issues or concerns. And I encouraged all of them to be very proactive and very active in this process, and that they are the experts in their field. We are not, and that they can add a tremendous amount of value as we go to do comparative analysis and look at the budgets and get into the details. So it was a great discussion. And Tom, I want to thank you for setting that up, and thank all of them. I enjoyed it.